Hello, beautiful beings. I did promise earlier in a post that tonight, at some point, I would make a little video talking about Mr. Russell Brand, my sort of experiences with him and my experience in TV and sort of like crossing over with him, and my thoughts on a more esoteric level about what's going on without any necessarily conclusion. And so I shall begin. Where to begin? Okay, I think I need to explain, if you don't follow me and you don't know my background. So back in the day, around the time that Mr. Brand came to our TV awareness, I was also working on TV in the UK. And I was the past life regression expert on a show called This Morning back in the day. And I then went on to do 2 series of a show, ironically, with another sort of tainted name of our day, Philip Scofield. So I did 2 series of a show with Philip Scofield. Now, during this time in the TV world, you're often invited onto other shows as a talking head or a guest or whatever. So back in the day, I was invited onto a show, must have been around 2004 to 2006, that Russell was the presenter for. I think it was even his own show. And I told someone who also worked in TV, and he was like, oh my God, you can't go on that show with him. He'll try to shag you. Which may well be a truth, but also at that point, not now, I'm obviously an older lady, but at that point, I was probably somewhere between 34 to 36. And I thought, well, it's great to know your thoughts on him. I think we all know that, you know, and I can defend myself and say no to someone should they approach me. I'm not a young girl anymore. I have the power to say no to people. And I think the other thing is, even back then, we all knew that Russell Brand had a very, very bad reputation as, you know, a Lothario ladies man. But worse than that, you know, by his own admission, he had issues with drugs and alcohol, which we can see now. You know, it's not 2004, it's not 2006. It's now, you know, 2023. And as I make this today, I think it's the 18th of September, because, you know, things are moving at such a fast pace. It's really good to put a date on things. So things for him have progressed rapidly downhill recently, but obviously a trajectory of uphill in his personal life. Now, I actually met him and his wife, ironically, in the most oddest way before they got married, actually, when they first probably got back together and came to stay around the corner from where I live here, near Glastonbury. And this is the weirdest thing that happened. And then I will go on from what I'm going to say now, which only if you're on a spiritual level will you understand the woo-woo-ness of what I'm about to say and the synchronicity of what I'm about to say. So I was reading a post online, it's actually a whole article by someone who I really respect her work and I love her insights on Atlantis and other things. And I was reading this article and I was thinking about someone like Russell Brand and the likes. And I read her article, and this was probably 2016 in the house I'm in now, just outside Glastonbury, and it is the middle of nowhere. And I read this article and I think to myself, it was about Atlantis, the fall of Atlantis. And I think that's what, in my head, I think to myself, that's what happened to people like Russell Brand. He's got caught in the false light spirituality matrix. And, you know, there's a lot of other stuff going on, but that's what I thought to myself. And I thought, yeah, I can read the timelines, the past lives, and how he's got involved in that on a soul level and all the other stuff that I could see. And as I thought this to myself, I just turned and looked out of the window, and there he was waving at me through the window, just waving, and with the lovely girl who is now his wife. And I thought, oh my God, that's so weird. Like, I think about him, I look out of my window in the middle of nowhere in Somerset, and there he is standing outside waving at me. And it turned out he was staying at the actor Nicolas Cage's house round the corner from where my house is, a big field between us, but there aren't many houses here, so that's where he was. And I saw them walking past my house quite a lot, and they did even go to the village, what was it, the village fete, I think. They even showed up at that. So that was a weird experience. Now that night I went to sleep, and as I was sleeping, because probably the ley line, only those on a spiritual level will understand this, the ley line probably runs through Nicolas Cage's house and my house onto Glastonbury tour. And in the night I woke up to see Russell Brand wearing a blue sari coming through the astral plane. So that was another weird aspect of this whole experience with Russell Brand. And, you know, everything that's happening now, from what I've read so far, is historically these women are talking about some potential abuse that happened 20 years ago. Now, I can speak from my own experience, not with him, my own experience of having someone date rape me when I was very young and 18. And it took me a long time, probably took me till I was in my mid-30s to actually acknowledge the depth of what happened. And it's a journey healing from that. And as we know, a lot of people who've experienced abuse, they don't always come forward straight away. You know, it takes many, many years, and some people choose to never come forward. But in this situation, it's a bit odd that 20 years later, 4 people all come forward at the same time. That's odd. Is there potential that these things might have happened? Possibly, because back in the day, you know, Mr. Brand, by his own admission, was highly promiscuous, you know, not particularly someone you would want to be interested in. I wouldn't think so, with the reputation that he admitted he had. You know, he's openly admitted he slept with thousands of people. Any woman who would openly be interested in that. And some of the women's accusations are ones who willingly went forward to want to date him in a time when he wasn't in a good place in his life. So that's a bit naive. Now, the other ones who are young, that's dreadful and terrible if these allegations turn out to be true. And there's a potential, there's a potential his soul might not even remember any of this, because back in the day he was doing drugs and alcohol. So possibly in one of the recollections that one of the women who's accusing him has, she says she saw his eyes go black and dark and him almost check out. Now, probably that is him being taken over by demonic entities, which I sense would have caused him multiple personalities, which he seems to find quite easy in the old days to go into those different sort of Dickensian characters and all these different things. So probably with the drugs and alcohol and trauma that he'd not healed or processed back in the day, it's possible that these things may well have happened and he may personally have no recollection of it because he got taken over by lower astral realm beings. You know, a lot of the work I do as a spiritual therapist for 22 years is I deal with entities and I deal with the emotional cohesion to humans and how they take you over. And if you have any trauma you've not dealt with and you then start taking drugs and alcohol, it's going to potentially tip you more over the edge than some people, and you get taken over by these lower astral realm beings. Sometimes we might call them even succubuses and incubuses that get attached to the sacral sexual chakra, and then they make people sort of obsessed and like a rabid animal. You know, these are the stories I've heard from clients. These are what I've seen happen with people and these dark negative entities that can take them over. So that's one aspect of it. And then we go into the other aspect of why is the media pushing this now? You know, is Russell Brand been used as a tool for an agenda? Possibly so. You know, has he always been used for that? Possibly so. Does he actually know that he's used? Does he have MK Ultra mind control programs running? We don't know. Possibly, possibly not. Does he seem to support the Fabian Society movement? Seems that he does in some other signs and symbols that he puts out there. Possibly so. You know, what is the story and why is it sucking our energy and our time and attention now, which is the key thing for all of us now. Why are we getting, in the UK, more so probably than some countries, you know, why are we being drawn into the story of the bad guy, good guy? On another level, it's very sad for his wife right now because she's pregnant. I think she's due to give birth to their third child in November. You know, that's probably going to make her pregnancy quite stressful. It's a bit of a sad time in her life for that. Do we believe in redemption? You know, that's the other thing. Do we believe that people can change and there is redemption? I genuinely don't really follow him. I've occasionally heard his, you know, talks on spiritual matters now, so I can't say I'm up to speed with who he's interviewing, what he's about just now, but his energy looks like he's cleared a lot of darkness from him. So, you know, there's the bigger picture. You know, perhaps if these things turn out to be true, you know, where does that leave us now? And also the key thing that I'd like to say with all of this story and accusations and everything, how does it trigger you? Because instead of us judging these other people, so I want to remain neutral on this because I really don't know. I don't know the truth of anybody's story as such. But what does it do for you? As a woman, does it trigger in you abuse and trauma that's happened to you that you've maybe not processed? Does it make you reflect back on situations that you found yourself in, or people who've abused you in positions of leadership or authority or power, or people who weren't even in those situations? And then as a man, how does it trigger you? And also, how does it trigger you as a fan, someone who really, really loves Russell Brand, loves what he's about? You know, how does that trigger you? Because then it's like, wow, I really have put a lot of energy into loving this person, supporting them, maybe even going to their, you know, events and gigs, to which I've never been to those things. I've never really been a fan of his, you know, it's not someone I followed back in the day when I was in TV. If you followed me from the beginning, you know, I talked about being invited on that show. And what I didn't tell you was, by me sharing that with my sort of friend, who also worked in TV, but was quite powerful within TV and linked to shows that Mr. Brand worked on, that got stopped. I never went on the show, you know. So that was another interesting aspect of it. By me speaking about that, that got it blocked and stopped, and it never happened. Now, I personally, as some of you will know, have spoken out back in 2013 on a BBC show called The Big Question. And that got me sent to media Coventry, literally overnight, you know. I didn't do anything wrong other than just speak a few words of truth and, you know, about the food and drug industry. And I spoke about it being a holographic universe and a little bit more information. And that was me sent to media Coventry. If you know what that means, if you're not from the UK, it means like media silence. You're just, nobody rings you from TV, press or radio, just like totally doof, that's the end of it, you know. And I've carried on as a therapist, carried on speaking my truth on matters that are important. And, you know, this situation now is, I think, personal to us all. This is what I want to stress. Observe your reaction to it. This is collectively a story for the whole of humanity. Now, remember, back in 2012, when the UK hosted the Olympics, in the Olympic ceremony, Russell Brand played a part in this dreadful reenactment of goodness knows what. I don't want to say too much, but basically there were nurses running around trying to inject children in hospital beds in this 2012 Olympic ceremony. Mr. Brand was rolled on in a cage, portraying the child catcher from Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. So that's another, you know, little odd quirky thing. Also, I believe he's written some books which are children's books, and not probably the lightest books. I think they're probably more in the vein of Mr. David Williams' books, which are quite, in my opinion, having not read them, but just looking at the titles and hearing the brief of the stories, a little bit dark for children, I feel. Not quite the love and light that you would like, you know? Maybe the modern day Roald Dolls, you know? And if you've ever read Roald Dolls, adult books, which I bizarrely once found one of Roald Dahl's adult books. They're quite dark, but they're also predictive of what may happen in the future. One of them in particular is one called My Uncle Oswald, which I found buried in the sand. And nobody believes me that, but I actually found it buried in the sand in the Caribbean. And I read that book many, many years ago. And it was about stealing the sperm from all the powerful men in the world and using it to create a superior race. So, you know, in a way, a lot of what we create is either to put fear in us, to make us misjudge the people that we've held in esteem. But the people we need to hold in esteem are ourselves, you know, to walk this earth with grace and dignity and to act from a place of goodness within ourselves, you know, that I do believe in redemption of people, though. I do believe that we have to give people an opportunity to heal and change. And, you know, although I've experienced trauma in my life, I've never turned to drugs or alcohol. I've just ploughed through my own trauma. You know, I've head on ploughed through my trauma, as have many of you. So do we make excuses for people because the acts that they've committed have been while they're fueled with drugs and alcohol? You know, we have to have an understanding of that. But, you know, if someone's turned their life around now, but ultimately, are these celebrities being used for a global agenda? You know, are they sort of throwaway beings who've been used in a programming operation? We don't know that. And are they personally aware of that? They may be, they may not be. We don't know. But I just think it adds more food for thought in some of the things that I've said. You know, have a thought about how this affects you. Don't give your Lucian energy to it. I know even by making this video, I'm sort of giving energy to something. But also I know from working with so many women who've been abused, who've got trauma from abuse, complex post-traumatic stress, you know, those things will affect you, and you will affect you in subtle ways in your life you will never really realize until you start processing it and you start going through your life. And, you know, we're trying to get that heavy patriarchal energy off the planet. Now, that heavy patriarchal energy isn't necessarily about men. You know, that heavy patriarchal energy can come through women too. But what we're trying to bring onto the planet now is this higher frequency of divine feminine, divine masculine in union together, in love, you know, in the heart. And, you know, it must be very difficult as a woman who's decided to be with someone after they've been through a change in their vibration, their energy. They may not even be inhabited by the same souls that were in them, demonic beings that were in them when they may or may not have committed these things they're being accused of. We don't know for sure. Is it an agenda to throw this person under the bus because they've got 6 million followers and they seem to be pushing a narrative? But are they pushing the false light narrative, or are they pushing the truthful true narrative? Or is there a darker agenda behind it? Is there a switcheroo switchback at the end of where they're trying to lead you? And does that actual person know what they're potentially being used for or not used for? Or are they not being used? And are they genuinely awakened and helping people? Who knows? But what I do know, and I would like to end what I've shared with this, and I'll just scroll back at the end and see any comments that people have made. What I do know from my 22 years of going inside myself and going through journeys and transformations, I'm more or less the same person I was 20 years ago. I've evolved in my consciousness and the work that I offer to you to help you go inside and heal your emotional trauma, be that from being in the womb in childhood, be that from the inner child, which the inner child is very deep and complex to heal, and it's a process. And I know many people, you know, on a spiritual path who are, they're interested in looking at their past lives and maybe their ancestral work, but they don't really want to look at their inner child to the depth they need to do it. There's many people I know who would portray themselves as a spiritual teacher, but actually if you went to regress them, they wouldn't even be able to go into their inner child because they're a full-on narcissist. They're a full-on spiritual narcissist. And there are accusations that Mr. Brand is a narcissist. I have seen some people go through stages of being narcissistic and transforming and changing. Not many people do, but some people can go through that transformation. I would also say some people who are extreme empaths need to kind of come more into balance of maybe they could learn something by narcissists without becoming a narcissist. Do you understand that? And most people don't understand the complexities of these energies. But a lot of the work that I do, and you can see videos on me talking about spirit releasement, getting rid of demonic entities in people, or just souls that have attached to people, and the emotional cohesion is always trauma. Could be past life, but it's often trauma from childhood, and we have to heal this inner child. And by Mr. Brand's own admission, I think he said he was very overweight as a child and he's stayed very slim now. So there was some trauma in childhood. I've never read his autobiographies. I don't know. I also did read a disturbing article. I don't know whether it's true or not. That I saw an article that I looked at today, and it said that his first sexual experience was with a prostitute that his father had arranged when he was 16. And there were some more graphic details to it, which I won't go into. I don't know if that article's true or not, but if that is true, that's pretty sad that your father would arrange your first sexual experience to be with a prostitute when you're 16. That is desperately sad, and that's desperately programming you to not really have a very high esteem as a young man for women and for sex, and to see sex as a physical act rather than a beautiful connection from the heart, from love. So, he's probably had to work through all that programming, and he may well still love and adore his father, but, maybe some of his father's behavior is been, a contributing factor to the trauma of his reasons for taking drugs and alcohol when he was younger and his parents splitting up, and all of those things are a contributing factor. But we don't have to become alcoholics or take drugs, although some people do. But we have to believe in redemption for all people at some point. But we have to really believe in the redemption of our own soul, and how seeing all these pantomime characters, out in the stage, in the TV land, what is the story? What is the agenda? What can it help you to heal in you and clear up in your own journey, in your own story, to be a better human being on this planet, and to heal your own mental health, your physical health, and your emotional health, and clean up your own life? Do you want to be taking drugs or alcohol to excess? Because let him be a warning of, what it does do to you. And then you can see someone when they've cleared that now, that, he seems a much higher vibrational being, but is he still being used? We don't know for sure. Everybody can cast their aspersions on a person and a situation. We don't know, but I think that it is a cosmic pantomime, and all these actors are playing out a part if we use it to our advantage to help our own soul heal and evolve. So that's what I'd like to leave you with from my 22 years experience weaving between past lives, inner child, ancestral. And one lady saying her ex-husband was a narcissist and her best teacher. I have come across many a narcissist, and trust me, they have been my best teachers to let go of being a chronic empath and become an empath with boundaries, so they can change, and they are our gift to us as well, So it's a complex situation. And the media are using our what's called louche, its energy, to manipulate us into emotional reactions and to distract us as well. So we also have to consider, what are the stories are we being distracted from? the Philip Scofield story just disappeared. The Hugh Edwards ones just disappeared. You know, will this one just disappear as well? You know, why are all these things coming up? You know, use it for you on a personal soul level. Don't get into arguments and debates with other people's, because that separates us. They want you separated. You know, everything's separation. Just use it for you as a personal tool, as a emotional catalyst into yourself. Of don't put people on pedestals, you know, don't worship false gods. You know, if you want to worship anyone, get a picture of yourself and look at that and worship yourself. And I spoke to a lady yesterday who was quite sad. She was a beautiful lady, but she obviously had some issues because she said she never looked in the mirror, because I said, oh, your eyebrows are really beautiful. You know, she had very thick eyebrows, and I thought, well, she mustn't have ever plucked them when she was younger, because they're all lovely and full eyebrows. And she said she never looks in the mirror. And we do have to look in the mirror, because we have to face ourselves, and we have to face our aging, and we have to face who we are. And, you know, can you be, as one of my favorite poems in the world is The Invitation by Araya Mountain Dreamer. And I often quote this couple of sentences in this poem, which is, can you betray another to be true to yourself, bear the accusation of betrayal, and not betray your own soul, and be faithless and therefore trustworthy? And another line in the poem is, and do you truly like the company you keep in the empty moments? Because that's about being at peace with yourself. So whatever this story brings up, are you at peace with yourself? You know, Mr. Brand has to find out whether he's at peace with himself. It's not for us to judge that. He will be the judge of himself. If he's at peace with himself, there's a journey, you know, it's a soul journey. So much love, many blessings. I'm Andrea Foulkes with 22 years experience of emotional healing, our emotional inner selves, to create liberation and healing for our soul freedom. So thank you for listening, and many blessings for your comments. And I'm just scrolling through and seeing if there's any that I need to read. Some people have said, yeah, it's triggered them. Yes, Black Eyes Demonic Takeover for sure. You know, I have videos on entities. If any of you are a member of Sasha Stone's membership site, I did a fabulous interview with Sasha Stone on entities in his private members club. You can look back. I can't remember what month it was, but it was this year. So look back at that. There were other videos on my YouTube channel about entities and demonic energy and how to heal that. And, you know, I spent 22 years helping people heal that. And it's not wooey, it's not frightening or scary. It's really loving and beautiful to help people heal that. Someone's saying they had a dream with him as a tiger, astral traveling. So yeah, come into the sacred neutral with everything. So thank you for listening. Much love, everybody. Bye.